seconds to recording. Hello. Oh. Hello everyone, can you hear me? Post announcements. Let's see, always lose it. Where is it? There we go, Twitch streams, gonna post this. Live streams, where's office hours? Office hours. Post this. And I will post the socials, post. And post. There we go. It's been posted. Okay. Let's see. Anything I'm missing? Hello? Hello, check the Froox out there. Check the Froox out there asking. Oh, actually, let me finish this first before I start. Oh. I need to move a file or delete one. Let's see. That's fine. I've got enough space. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, Jack the Fox Otter. Hello, Nuki. Hello, VTR Xelos, Navy. Hello, Red Nico. And Jack the Fox Otter, Typunks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Resonite. I'm Froox. Unfortunately, today we're without Cyro because he's not feeling well. So it's just me. But I'm here to answer any questions you might have about Resonite. Feel free to ask anything. Make sure to put a question mark, that way it kind of pops on the thing here and the pin messages, and I will, that way I can make sure I don't miss it. Some of the questions I might redirect to some of the other office hours, like for example moderation ones that happen just prior to this one. Purple Prime's office hours, our team, and so on, so we can get detailed answers from them. But feel free to ask. Worst case, we'll just redirect you. How's the audio going? Is everything okay? I also have some questions from Discord, so I'm gonna go through those first. Let some questions on Twitch pile up. Feel free to ask stuff in the meanwhile. Once I'm done with the Discord questions, we'll move to the Twitch ones. So I think it should be kind of everything. So let me make the camera be static so it's not floating around, and I can put the questions in there and we can get started. So I've got the Discord questions. I don't think I have them in order, so so the first question, first question's from Missing, and Missing, actually I need to duplicate it so I can read it as well. Missing is asking, with the ever-continuing intensification of Discord, could we see Resonite set foot into better platform for forums and chats? Maybe Matrix, a forum on the Resonite website. Maybe. It's one of those things where we would kinda more go where people are, if that makes sense. Because for us it's a big part of it is reach. And something that a lot of people cannot use. So if there's people moving to specific platform, we're more likely to move to that as well. There's a fair amount of work because we need to figure out how to set it up, how to moderate it. Is this something people are actually using? So there's a bit of overhead. So we'd more likely, just follow, if people are moving to, one of the platforms, one of the alternatives has become popular, we are more likely, to kind of move on to that one because that's already kind of, where a lot of people are moving. Whereas if we choose something and it's kind of like I know like Matrix, for example, has been kind of floating around, but like a lot of people have like issues, with the UI, and it's kind of too complicated for people. So there might be like, a barrier of entry. So we might want to see like where like, a lot of people end up like moving and kind of make decisions based on that. Some of the things like we're kind of moving, like for example, Pearl Prime, he's, been doing his office hours using the Discord stages, but now since that will soon require the age verification, he's moving his office hours to Twitch, kind of like we're doing here. So there's like, some parts that kind of get moved, like so people don't have to like age verify, like to just access things, but we'll see. We'll kind of see like how some of the stuff shakes up, and like if one of the platforms is becoming like really popular, like I feel like we definitely would consider moving there, but it's more, like from my perspective, I feel it's more we will like follow where people go. At least like partly like the next question. Let's see. Another one. This one's actually Sims follow-up. Me duplicated to. Red is asking to follow up with this swapping away from Discord. If it's considered, I throw TeamSpeak and 30 contenders. It's pretty good. It's a known company that has initiativized its stuff and has been around 2001 and have continued to just make things better since, though I don't exactly know what it would look like to make server the size of Resonite. Yeah, it's like pretty much the same answer. Like if a lot of people go to TeamSpeak and as well like gaining traction, like we're more likely to consider that one. But from a perspective, like it's a little bit like, we don't want to put a lot of effort into setting up like whole server and setting up moderation and setting up like things and moving things only for that platform to not be the one that becomes popular and people using something else and we have to do it all over again. So we might want to like give it a bit of time and see like which one is becoming popular before we kind of consider this like setting it up. There's also like the aspect of as much as it sucks, is there's a lot of people like in the Discord server, and that's like a reach, and that kind of helps us promote the platform. So we probably have to be like running them in parallel, unless like there's like really mass migration, and that's kind of like where a lot of these things they're kind of like more difficult from a company perspective, because like the Discord like it serves multiple roles, but the official one is it is official because that's like where we reach most people. Which is what we need to do, as a platform and as a business to, to succeed. We need to maximize our reach. And that kind of makes it like, where our hands are more tied, in what we choose. So by people, like by you, switching and like lots of people actually adopting like the different platforms, that's how we kind of, untie our hands and make it like, more viable for us to like support that. But definitely probably need like to wait see like how this kind of shakes up and determine like what is the best one to set up if you're like to move and or offload alternatives, which we would definitely like like to do, but there's always like limitation of bandwidth, because like the more we have, the more moderators have to keep track on, the more places we have to post things out, and cross post, and that adds like a certain amount of overhead. And requires more time that might be limited. Let's see, what's the next question? So this one, let me spawn this one. We're gonna duplicate it, gonna place it here. Hold on. So a computer user is asking, question intended for both Froox and Sarah to answer. Unfortunately, Sarah's not here, so you have to like ask next time if you want his answer. Are there any long songs that you like? I meant to ask this live at the last Resonite Spot Forward, and I asked him because Brain recently became infected by Unfield's album Tubular Bells. There's a bunch. It kind of depends what your definition of long song is. Because like, you know, I don't know if it's like, say more than 5 minutes, is it more than 10 minutes, more than 15 minutes, like, you know, there's like bunch of like ways to interpret. There's like a lot of songs I listen to that people generally consider long because it's like 7-8 minutes, but I wouldn't consider that long. For me, that's kind of normal. So if I go by my own definition, like long, like where it's like, you know, say more than 10 minutes, more than 15 minutes, there's, what's it called? There's a bunch of like, there's this music artist called Neurotech. He does a lot of like kind of cyber metal thing, and like usually around like holidays he releases these like symphonies, and it's like a metal symphony, and those are usually pretty long and pretty good. They're like purely instrumental too, so it's like, you know, just kind of music, and they are they're very good. Like they kind of like keep like developing and changing, and like the one where like it's like I think it's like 17 minutes or so that's like, you know, pretty long one. There's like a bunch. There's actually another one that I like recently kind of like that is relatively long, like if you consider the whole thing, but it's kind of weird. It's the Herald of Darkness from Alan Wake 2, and it's actually interesting because that song kind of plays in the game, and it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of dynamic, but there's like various edits of it, and there's like, you know, edits that are like, you know, 3 minutes long, there's edit that's like 8 minutes, and there's like edit like the full thing, if you include like all the stems and all the bits that are like, you know, playing there, it's like 30 minutes, so I guess that could count. So this, I don't know, it kind of depends, like if you clarify what is long song for you, I might have like, you know, better answer, but like right now I'm kind of thinking, you know, like 15 minutes plus for the long songs. I do like, you know, pretty long ones. Next question, let's see, I'm just gonna, I didn't bring this in order. Next question we got is from Minchok. Today I remembered you made a game before Resonite, Sightline VR. I tried looking for it on Steam, but could not find it. Apparently it is restricted in Germany, at least SteamDB believed. I believe this is because it might not have age rating set. Same happened to Google Earth VR a while ago. Do you have access to other rating to the Steam page? Unfortunately I don't for that one. I might like look into like republishing it though, like maybe like spruce it up a little. But yeah, like the existing one I can't like update, unfortunately. Next one. Next question is from ooh, we're getting some light now. Next question. Limit is asking, would it be possible to implement standardized system for basic health and damage tracking, specifically for enabling NPCs and weapons that can interact with players? I mean, there's a bunch of those already. Depends what you mean exactly by standardized. Because usually, like, you know, the way it goes with standards is like, you know, there's the famous XKCD, like, where, you know, there are 14 standards. You know, we need to make standard that encompasses everyone needs, you know, and solves all the need for the standards. Now there are 15 standards. So there's usually kind of like an issue with those kinds of systems, is like people have different needs for these kinds of systems, and the way we kind of approach it with Resonite is like, you know, we provide you the building blocks. You know, like for example, you have the dynamic variables. Like that makes it super easy to store whatever variables you want on the user. You know, you can put like a health on the user, and then we have systems that like dynamically read and interact with it, maybe make something happen when it goes. So you have a lot of kind of like, you know, flexibility. We wouldn't want to prescribe like a single system for like, you know, this kind of thing, because it is gonna depend, you know, what kind of game experience you're building. And it shouldn't be too difficult to like, you know, just build a system. we've seen stuff like, like community standards or some things, like for example, like, audio reactive variables. So you can set it up on your avatar, a lot of people follow that. If you want to kind of, start something like that for like health system, have it catch on, that might be like kind of good approach. Make a lot of, make a lot of like different systems kind of interact with it. But ultimately, like, it's gonna be like if you're building an experience, you might have like specific needs, and that system might not fit your needs. So you build like, one that's tailored to your own experience. So we are very like, our philosophy is like, we provide the kind of building blocks for a lot of things, and then, you can build your own systems with those, and because that gives you the most flexibility, rather than us, prescribing how exactly is health system gonna work, because they might, differ a lot. We also got a follow-up question. Let's see. We got a follow-up question. Same goes for standardized way of nav mesh generation. Messing around with NPCs is something I really miss coming over from Garry's mode. That one I would say it falls a little bit more on the side of like, nav mesh is a building block. So like we could probably like, provide that one, because it's a building block you can like, choose to use. And it's kind of like, more generalized kind of like system where you like, actually, let me back up a little bit. So what we probably do is like, have some like system that like, handles kind of like nav mesh, and then have systems that interact with that system, either to like, read it, or to like build and modify. So you can have, you could use the nav mesh to query it, but you can make your own algorithm to build it from the world, like your own tooling, stuff, and maybe you can provide, some helper tools to like, help with that. Because that one, it's like, it is very optional. Like, like you can use it, you can just completely use your own, or you can, modify or just use parts of it. So I feel like a nav mesh system, like we are more likely to, provide, some built-in solution if there's interest in that. With caveat, like, that like you can still build your own. And in fact, someone actually built a fully functional nav mesh system, like, with Protoflex. It was Chip Forge in MMC, and they actually made like a fully functional nav mesh system. Let me move this over here so you can read it. So check out this world. Like it has like explanations. It's excellent. This won the I believe it was tools category in MMC 2024. It has like agents that like will chase you around, and you can literally like edit the nav mesh in the world, and the agents are, if you cover new areas with nav mesh, they will be able to chase you, wherever that goes. So the tooling we provide, it already lets you build those kinds of systems like fully in game, and it's kind of like, what our big kind of philosophy is. We want to make a very general tooling, very general programming languages that let you build your own systems and share them, with the community, share them with others. Because we won't be able to provide, everything you need. Like, like we are going to be limited in time, so we want to invest a lot of our time into providing more generalized components, and then let, everyone in the community build solutions that can be shared, and reused. So that's kind of like, where we, there's, like, like, it's gonna be like a mix, but like we try to push things more that way, where we like, the more generalized tooling we can provide, the more power we can give you, and the community, like, the better. Let's see. And also, kind of comes down to like what I was talking about earlier. Like, there might be different ways to do nav mesh system and different needs. So if the one we say like we implement one officially, if that one doesn't suit your needs, you can make your own as well, and and share that, and maybe some people will use yours instead of the official one. Next question. This one's, please don't like use the questions channel as a like discussion. Like It's just kind of like related to the Discord stuff. Next question is from Mintshock, and they are asking, what is a value tag component? The value tag component is a simplified version of value field component. The value can be read or written. I actually don't remember from memory, so I will have to check it. I wish I kind of had a cider here, but let me see if I don't die if I open the Visual Studio project. I might be dying, maybe? Yep, definitely feeling the lag from the Visual Studio loading in my desktop now, but let me just search the value tag. So let's see, let's have a look at the source code. Oh, this hurts. Visual Studio and VR don't mix super well. So, can I use it as a... Let me see, find uses. So it just holds like a value. It is like similar to the field, but it might be different in how it's used. No, it's not used. I think this is one of those like vestigial kind of bits that like was used for something at some point and then... Oh jeez, I'm closing Visual Studio now. It was used for something and now it no longer is, so it's just there. I would probably... Oh no. No. Hold on. Visual Studio is deciding it wants to update, so give me a second. There we go. Sorry for that. It was like, oh, you closed Visual Studio, I can launch the Visual Studio installer now, and it's like, no. Made it go away. But yeah, it's, my best guess is like, it's like a vestigial kind of bit, like where it was used for something, or intended to be used for something, and it ended up like being used. So I'd probably just use like value field. We might even like look into just removing it and converting like, you know, all the instances to value field. And the last question from Discord, Nukikun is asking, what can we do to encourage Valve to give Resonite a dev kit? Is there like official tell us we should have get one page? We could potentially do petition or something that would help. I don't think they have like anything official like that. If you... Oh jeez, tracker's being weird. Why is my tracker being weird? There we go. It's because I moved out of VR. So my setup's kind of weird today. Let me just redo this one. Nukikun's asking, what can we do to encourage Valve to give their Resonite a dev kit? Is there like official tell us who should get one? Oh my god, my tracker's having issues. Let me just do this again. What can we do to encourage Valve to give Resonite a dev kit? Is there like an official... Oh my god. Is there like... Sorry, I'm moving my base station and now it's having issues. The Nukikun's asking, what can we do to encourage Valve to give Resonite a dev kit? Is there like an official tell us who should get one page? Should we potentially petition or something that would help? So I would say it kinda... I'm not aware, like, you know, they have a page like that, so I don't think there's like necessarily an official way to do it. If you really wanted to do something, maybe like, you know, like poke them like at social media, say like, you know, like I play Resonite, you know, and that you would find it like, you know, helpful, like if we had like a dev kit so we can make sure it works properly with it. If they see like, you know, a bunch of people, like, you know, that it's important to people, maybe that'll convince them. I don't know if that'll work. I don't want to like, you know, I'm getting spammed either. So if you do something like that, please be very like, you know, be respectful. Don't be aggressive about it. I guess like, you know, just kind of like in general, like showing people that like showing Valve that Resonite matters to people and that like you want to use it with the Steam frame. Maybe that could help, you know, kind of convince them. Like, I kind of speaking like for experience because like last time I got like a dev kit for the index controllers, it actually happened because I knew a person who knew a person in Valve, and I went to them. I was like, you know, we don't have like the index dev kit. That was called Knuckles back then, and we didn't have like the Knuckles controllers. And we applied for them, and like we heard nothing. Even though like we were like, you know, making a bunch of like VR stuff. That was permanent at the time, and they just spoke to somebody at Valve, and they were like, yeah, you should have dev kit, and then they approved it like pretty much instantly. So I don't know how the processes work. They're a little bit like opaque, I guess. And at least my experience has been that like you have to know somebody at Valve to like for them to actually approve it. So I don't know. So that's all the questions from Discord that we have. I don't know why my tracker's like just freaking out now. Feels like it's being weird. We can start going through questions from... I think it's because I moved and kind of moved. Give me a second. There we go. So the first question we got from Discord, from Twitch is, Jack the Fox Author is asking, are you in a cozy Valentine's Day world? No. I'm in a desolate, snowy desert. I was looking for a snowy world because it just kind of like snowed here heavily, and so I was like, I just want something with snow, just kind of match before I switch to the warmer worlds. And maybe 3001 is asking, when you have Unity, Teresa, Virus, or link down, will it be a Unity package? I think so. Like we do want to like make it like so it automatically publishes, so you can like install it in Unity easily. So I have to like figure out like if it's like better to as a Unity package or if it's better, you know, to export it like through the package system. We might even provide like multiple methods that there very likely is gonna be like, you know, something to make it very easy to install. Next one from the Red Neko, Schnoppet. Right now my tracker. I do actually have like one that's relatively recent. So one thing that kind of bugs me a lot is like, you know, and it's kind of in general a problem I noticed is like nowadays that people don't like literally learn critical thinking skills and doing, you know, research, you know, for sources of information, finding primary sources and verifying them and understanding, you know, how you make sure the information like you're receiving, you don't just take it at face value, but you make sure it kind of comes from good sources. You make sure ideally there's multiple sources as well that are converging on the same information. And you just, you know, you don't take things like immediately at face value just because you heard someone, you know, say it somewhere. And I feel it's kind of becoming like an increasing kind of problem. And I've seen it like happen, you know, like where on our platform there's like, you know, there's rumor mills, you know, and there's like stuff that just completely seems to manifest out of nowhere. and just it spreads, and people don't bother to, you know, to verify if it's actually correct or not. There's one that I actually just saw like happen recently, is where somebody was like, you know, worried that their MMC entry is disqualified because a bunch of people are saying that it's been disqualified, and they actually went and, you know, asked about it, like verified the official sources, and they were like, nope, it's not disqualified, it's just a rumor mill. And like that was a little bit like upsetting to see, because like, you know, that's causing them unnecessary anxiety, and that could have been prevented if people actually, you know, just talked and verified with the official sources. There's other ways this manifests as well, you know, outside of Resonite. Another recent one I've seen is there's a company where they end up like using AI for like, you know, like chatbots for like, you know, doing like predictions for, you know, whatever like market stuff they were doing and so on. And they've been using it for like 3 months or so. And now they just randomly found that all the, you know, all the data, all the graphs, all the stuff they were basing their business decisions on, you know, and their market decisions, it was just made up. Like the AI just hallucinated it, completely out of nowhere. And now it's like a huge problem because like they were like basing the decisions for a while, and it's completely bogus because the people at the company didn't bother verifying the data. And you know, now, and that's also something that like would be preventable if people like, you know, were like, is this giving us right information? Like, you know, check the actual information. And it wasn't until like, you know, somebody asked them to check something and they kind of like check something and they were like, you know, this is weird, like this doesn't like match up. And then they started digging into it and they found that like all the stuff for the last 3 months was like complete nonsense. Like that was just hallucinated. And apparently like, you know, they wanted like, you know, the company to like verify things, but they were like, you know, you're slowing down progress, and now they're paying the price for that. But it's like one of the things is like, you know, where because people don't have the skill or the will to verify and, you know, think critically about like what they're receiving, a lot of stuff like this keeps happening. That's like, you know, why I feel like why a lot of the we're seeing a lot of the kind of like negative effects of things, and it manifests itself in lots of different ways, and it is just kind of like sad because like, you know, I feel like a lot of like negativity could be prevented if, you know, people had more of those kind of skills. Because the way I have like, you know, some science background, and like the way I like, you know, kind of think about problems is like, you know, I usually try to avoid like taking things at face value. Sometimes it happens, you know, but like you want to minimize it as much as possible. You want to be as aware of your own, you know, cognitive biases and do what you can, you know, to mitigate them. And I also have like, you know, some background, like I used to be like an editor for a magazine, where I was like writing articles, so I would work with sources a lot. You know, I'd be like, okay, like, you know, finding sources, then find the primary source. And even like, you know, at school, like we actually had like, you know, we also had classes for, you know, finding primary sources and verifying information and, you know, critical thinking. And I feel that's kind of helped a lot because like I usually will try to dig into like what is the source of this claim, like where is this kind of, you know, coming from, and is this kind of, you know, substantiated? Are there multiple ways to kind of verify? And you also kind of, the way you think about things is like, you know, if you hear something, you don't give it much strength until you actually have, you know, some sources verifying it. And especially in science, the way we kind of build knowledge about things is like, you know, we have, you know, for example, studies, and the studies that get peer-reviewed, we see if somebody can replicate the results. And the more studies you have around a subject, the more information you collect, and you check, are those studies all converging, pointing towards the same information? And the more you have, the more you can be confident in, you know, in that piece of information. But even then, like, you know, it's still like, there might be like, you know, some parts you're missing, and maybe some study like, you know, will end up like finding something, at which point, you know, you update your model to kind of, you know, do that. But usually the more you have something confirming, you know, the same result, ideally through completely different methods, the more confident you can be in that piece of information. And you kind of, you know, you base your thinking around that. So yeah, that's kind of like my job is like I feel like people are liking these skills nowadays, and it's leading tons of problems both for Resonite and within the community and outside. So I'm not gonna keep going on this. We also got Taipongs from Redneco. I actually have like one version down. Let me see if I can pull it up. Come on, let's see, open this, open my doc. Like, I thought about Taipongs like earlier this week and I was like, I need to write it down before I forget, and I forgot, but I wrote it down, so I can remember that way. Let's see. Scrolling, where is it? Oh, yes, I remember now. So, one of my Taipongs is like, it's actually something that happened like earlier this week. We're actually like an update, but one of the side effects, let me see if I can actually, let me pull the image in first. Where is it? Because I have an image that goes with this. Let me paste this in here. So I have this ready. So, one of the things I kind of really like on this platform is, like, Arizona isn't still pretty, like, heavy development, and, sometimes, like, we do, like, testing, and sometimes, like, bugs happen, and there's, like, certain bugs where they cause, like, a bit of chaos, but what I really like, especially with our community, is that people end up, like, having a lot of fun with it. Like, if something breaks, like, we try to fix it as fast as we can. Sometimes, like, we fix it, like, within an hour, sometimes, within a day. But in the meanwhile, when there's, like, something cursed happening, people just, they just roll with it and, like, just end up, like, having lots of fun. And there's, like, one that happened earlier this week, which led to this issue number 6255. The glue bake tool is now evil and explodes people. Do you see like this thing over here? That used to be a person. And then they got baked. And this happened, and there's like another person over there, and it just led like, to meshes completely exploding in like very interesting ways. Whenever you bake them. Well, not in all cases. Which is why it didn't happen during the testing, but if there are like multiple submeshes and multiple meshes being baked together, it would access the wrong buffer data and would just end up like it ended up like producing very interesting results. And I literally joined the session and people are just, they're literally like, oh, like let's bake like multiple avatars together, or let's bake avatar like with this thing and see like how it explodes. And like it was like so much fun because like it just like I don't know, I really like that vibe. So that is one of my Taipongs is like, and this is not the first time it happened. We had like bugs before where things just explode in like really weird ways, and people just, have like shenanigans with it and like, having fun, and I really like that. It even like leads, like there was probably one of the funniest like GitHub issue titles I've seen in a while. And like, people saved up like a bunch of the meshes. I actually have like some of them saved up. Like, let me see if I can actually pull one of them. Let's see, saved it under this. I have statues. So, and I got stuff like this. So, this used to be a person. It's to be an avatar, and now it's whatever this is. I don't even know how to describe it. Or this one. Let's see. Oh, this one was very interesting. So this also was another avatar, and it turned into like these like discs that are just scattered all around. Just complete like nonsense, but it looks kind of cool. So now I'm like waiting. Will somebody make like interesting like art gallery with all of these? Um, but yeah, like, the short of it is, like, there's some bugs that just, like, even though they break things, they bring joy and fun and shenanigans, and I really like that vibe, and I really like that our community is having fun with these. So, like, even people were joking, like, oh, now we'll need, like, a mode where it brings back this behavior, or we'll need, like, a tool that explodes a mesh. So it is very fun, and it makes my work, like, more kind of joyful, even though, like, I made a mistake. I forgot a single, I forgot a single addition operation, and next thing I know, people are exploding, so it just happens sometimes. Whoop. Check the Fox Otters asking, are you looking forward to MMC World Hopping next month? Maybe our game will be even playable this year, yes. Yeah, I'm very excited to see, like, what everybody, like, made. Like, MMC is, like, always, like, it's one of those things that, like, I look forward to every year, because there's, like, some of the coolest creations are made, and I take my time to, like, go through all of them. Haven't reached a point yet, like, where I wouldn't be able to, but so it takes a while, but I try to go, like, well, like, so far I've gone, like, through everything. So I'm very excited to see, like, what people have made or are making, this year. And if you haven't joined yet, MMC is still open. It's not too late to join. There's literally been, like, last year, there's been, like, entries that were made, like, in, like, the last 2 days of it. So, I encourage everyone to join if you haven't. Next question's from Zewek. Don't know how I'm pronouncing your name right. They're asking, have you ever considered using Z-standard as the compression method or alternative for Resonite? I think it was thrown about a bit. I don't remember the details of it. It sounds like the one, like, is that one that came from Facebook? I don't actually remember. There's been, like, a few of them kind of thrown around, but we have to kind of evaluate it. Right now, like, we essentially use 2 algorithms. We use LZ4 and we use LZMA, and they kind of switch depending on the context. Like, LZMA is more like, we need heavy compression. LZ4 is like, we need, like, fast light compression. So it would depend, like, how it kind of compares to those two and how stable it is, and, like, what libraries are available. Next question. Oh no, we're getting... Lime Chito, one of my friends is concerned about the longevity of database topology used for inventory and things. They believe a relational database is not very scalable. Do you have any plans on improving the current system or changing the topology? So, this one's kind of weird, because, like, where are they getting the information about the database topology? Because it is not relational. We actually use, like, a NoSQL database that is highly scalable, and the whole system is designed to be, like, very, very scalable. It is partitioned, so, like, it can pretty much grow indefinitely. So there's actually one of those public cases where it sounds like there's some kind of rumor or misinformation being spread around on how the cloud works. So like, the system we already use is very highly scalable. We do not use, like, traditional kind of relation database, and that can have, like, scalability problems. There are ways, to, like, help with that, like sharding them, but, like, we are not using them. We're specifically using NoSQL technologies that are very highly scalable, and it's, like, designed from ground up, like, to, like, be partitioned, which helps both with performance and pretty much lets it scale nearly indefinitely. So, which means, like, like, we don't have any plans to change that, because we are already doing what you're asking for. Nukikon is asking, what do you like so much about Alan Wake? It's been a long time since I played the first one, but you seem to be talking about it a lot. It's, like, very, like, heavy, like, I'm in general, I kind of like horror games. I like psychological horror games, and I like story-based games, and Alan Wake is very creative, with its storytelling, and it's very unique. Like you can feel a lot of the passion that kind of goes into those games. And one of the things I also really like is SCP, and like Alan Wake, Control, and Alan Wake 2, which has lots of references to Control, is very SCP-like. There's a lot of weird stuff happening, and you don't necessarily even get explanations for a lot of it. So there's that a really good sense of mystery where you kind of grasping at things like why is stuff happening, and a lot of it also has there's metaphors that you can find in it. It is really good and deep storytelling, and it's also ultimately a universe that kind of feels weird and hard to understand. And one thing I kind of get in games is once you kind of get the story, it kind of, the mystery kind of evaporates out of it and it kind of becomes less interesting. But Alan Wake and Control games also, they're very fundamentally weird universes where a lot of stuff is just feels unknowable, and it's kind of hard to grasp. And I feel it's going to kind of on purpose. So it's a really good game. It's the world is very immersive, and it kind of keeps you going. What is happening with this thing? But also it's a world that has fun, even though it's kind of horror story. It has a lot of fun with it. There's I don't want to spoil anything, but there's literally things that will make you laugh and be this is awesome, and it feel it doesn't necessarily need to fit in the genre either. And it's just in general you can feel people who made the game they're very passionate, they're very creative, they have a lot of fun with it, and it shows. Especially the second Alan Wake. The second Alan Wake is I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to the next Control game where, mild spoilers, Alan Wake 2, there's a bunch of references to Control, and even the upcoming Control game, Control Resonite. And I'm very excited for that one because it looks it was really cool. I just generally, I like weird stuff, and weird sort of unknowable kind of stuff, where it just gets your brain going. Satan Dub is asking, what's your favorite locomotion? I forget what I asked. I mean, it depends on it's one of those things where I don't really have a favorite. It kind of depends, on the situation. Sometimes I'll be walk around, sometimes I'll be in no clip, sometimes I'll be in fly. Sometimes I'm gonna use the grab world. It depends on the situation, whatever suits the situation the most. VT Arxos is asking, do you happen to know if someone has been working on a JRPG-focused system? I don't know what it is, unfortunately. I don't really play those kinds of games, so I'm sorry, I don't know. Satan Depp is asking, what do you think is the most underrated tool? Let me think. Let me actually go to the tools so I can be what tools do we have? Well, it's kind of difficult because it depends what you're doing. I mean, we also have the developer and protoflags. I feel those are the two most used tools. Maybe the material, because somebody was asking, with the material tool, you can just assign it through the inspector. Through the developer tool you can kind of do everything, but there's something fun about just changing materials physically. I can just be I don't know, I want to change this thing, so just grab this and I just point at something and it'll be vzoop, and I'm different material. I want to, I want to change this, I'll be bloop, and now this is different material. I want to change the world, and it's too dark for that to see. It's there's nice kind of physicality about just hitting things and changing their material. It makes the workflow more fun. So maybe that. The other answer I would probably say is the brush tools, because the brush tools, like, they're very versatile, and I feel like people mostly use them for art, you know, like where you cannot draw something, but they actually have like a lot more utility, and they're very, very highly configurable. Like, you can make them do so many different things. And if we go into the brushes category in our tools, like, you know, there's a bunch of them. So for example, you know, with the convex hull, you can make, like, you know, you can make diamonds, or you can make rocks. So it can be just this, you know, and just make like a gem, and, you know, and this will fit in this now. Actually, this might even be made with it. I don't even know. Or, like, you know, I want more rocks. I'll be like, you know, I'll grab like this tool, and I will just draw an extra rock. You know, like, maybe I can give myself a little, like, there we go. You know, there we go. And I have an armrest. You know, maybe I put like a thing here so I don't fall. So just draw an extra rock here, and I can just literally build a world like this. Or like, I'm like, this place needs, you know, a little more green. It's, you know, it's too, it's way too, you know, kind of like just desolate. So just, you know, grab like a leaf brush and just be like, you know, there we go. There's some greenery, you know, kind of growing around. Maybe some greenery on this, you know, cover this with these vines or something. And, you know, now it looks a little bit less, you know, less desolate. So there's like, or like, you know, I can be like, you know, I wanna add a little like smog, so I can grab like a, let's see, I can grab like a billboard brush. Let's say I do this, and, you know, and it can be like, you know, draw a little cloud and be like, there we go, this little like mysterious cloud like around this, or maybe like another one here, and just put this here, you know, and it adds a little bit of atmosphere. There we go. See? So the brushes tools are definitely also like one that I feel like people don't realize, you know, their power, like how much they can actually do, and that you can use them for more than, you know, just line art. Let's see. Tom is asking, "Oi, Gabe, where the?" I mean, apparently he reads all the emails, so maybe should try messaging you. I don't know. I don't want to be like, you know, aggressive about it. Like, but also like, we could use it, like, you know, make sure like we're prepared, because I don't think it'll kind of work out of the box given how our input system works. And we've been doing VR, you know, for a good while. So I think that would like matter, but I don't know. Nicking's asking, follow-up to the Wolfram question just now. So would a petition be a good thing for us to start independent? Come on, why can I scale it? Independently. I mean, if you want to try, like, I don't think it would necessarily, like, don't be aggressive about it if you're gonna do it. It would eventually help kind of show, you know, there's like interest. That the community, you know, wants this to work on Steam Frame. So like, if that helps, like, I wouldn't complain, but also I don't want to like, I don't want us, you know, to be kind of aggressive like towards them, because they can, like, you know, make things worse. VT Arxels is asking, everyone asks how is Froox, but no one asks how is Froox. What? That's the same thing. I don't know if that's meant to be like a joke, or if that's meant to be a joke, or if it's like if you meant to type something different. It just makes me think of the, like, you know, the Avengers, like, you know, where is Gamora? How do you want with her? How is Gamora? I do want to bet her. Why is Gamora? I might have misquoted, but we already got typunks. That looks like conversation and thing. Kyle Volps is asking, I don't know if I asked, but anything new on your Linux adventures? Not yet. Well, sort of. I haven't actually done like any so I moved my setup, like I got this like dock for my laptop, so I'm like moving my setup to my laptop, and I'm probably gonna like turn my PC into like more of a server or something for like files and other stuff, because it kind of makes my setup easier. So I might put Linux on that. I do have the Linux installed on Endeavour. Sorry, I have the Endeavour installed on my laptop. And I want to like, you know, boot into it again and see kind of how it works. The main big thing for me is I want to see, I need like VR to work, and including like eye tracking with the Vive Pro. And this solution, like I think it was called like Revision, that's Sarah's been playing with, it actually seems to work pretty well with like Babylonia. It's missing a few things like some of the expressions, but it's getting there and it's improving. Like they've been making improvements over like, you know, months and just making it like way better, where the actual eye tracking is apparently seems like way better than the Cernapol. So once that's kind of like, you know, working, I'll pretty much like, you know, I think I'll just like, you know, make the switch. I'll be like, you know, I'm buying a license for either. I might even do that like before then. And there's other stuff I can figure out, but like VR and development are two main things, you know, I do pretty much every day, well, almost every day. Well, VR I do every day. Development I try to like avoid like during weekends. But once that like domino piece falls, like that's gonna fuel set everything else, and I'll actually actively make the switch. There's interesting thing I've actually seen, there's been recent news that Microsoft, like, they kind of realized they screwed up, and people are very unhappy and they lost trust in Windows 11, and they're now saying, you know, over this year, they need to, you know, work on rebuilding trust. And in their own words, they were like, you know, we need to work on changes that are meaningful to users, which on one hand is like, you know, like, why is that a realization like you have to make? Like, you know, that like it feels like one of those things like, why would you not be already doing that? You know, that feels like if you want your project to be successful, you need to work on changes, you know, that are meaningful and stop like kind of pushing like, you know, all the AI stuff that like people don't really care about. On the other hand, like, you know, I'm kind of glad they're at least like realizing that now and admitting to some of it, in part because like whenever I could, like, you know, that sometimes they pop like, you know, would you recommend Linux, you know, would you recommend Windows, you know, to your friends and colleagues? And I would be like, no, because, you know, all the stuff is breaking, that's important, and you're pushing things that like, you know, don't really matter to me, you know, and they're not like meaningful, and at least, you know, they got that message from a lot of users, so hopefully that's something, but also, you know, they already lost the trust, and they made the system like really bad, so it's probably gonna take years before they can rebuild that trust. And I'll probably be pushing, you know, I'll be myself like pushing moving towards Linux, because there's like just too many issues. There's also performance problems, like for example, like the scheduler, it's awful in Windows. Like, I feel like after Windows 7, like I heard like they rewrote it for some of the Windows RT stuff. I'm not fully sure of the details of it, but ever since like Windows 8, it felt a lot worse. So if I run like, you know, some heavy stuff, like for example doing processing of like scans and like even compiling, everything, the whole system just stutters. I can be playing like a YouTube video and it just starts stuttering whenever I compile. And it kind of didn't used to do that. Like, I remember on Windows 7 I would be running like heavy 3D reconstruction that's spinning all the cores, spinning the GPU, and like the system will still be responsive. I could do other stuff. And then it just kind of got way worse after that. And from what I heard, like people like on Linux, we have like actually choice of multiple schedulers, and there's like really good ones where people can be like, you know, compiling big projects and their system is still like fully responsive. But with Windows, it's kind of got to the point where it's like interfering like with my ability to use the PC, and that's kind of like why I want to actively make the switch. Even though, like, you know, for a while I was like using Windows because it was a system that just worked. and I generally kind of want things to just work because I don't like dealing with system issues. Like, I want to be working on the stuff I want to be working on, and I don't want to be working on making the computer work. I just want it to be like, the system makes sure it's working. And with Linux, it's always been kind of like, well, this is not working, we have to, find a solution and, make this config and, compile this and, and it's just a lot of work to, get stuff to work, but that's gotten a lot better. And also, now Windows is causing so many issues where it just doesn't work, or doesn't work well, where it's interfering with my day-to-day, and that's kind of what's pushing me towards the switch. So I'm kind of waiting for the overarching stuff to stabilize a little bit, stabilize, get some of the features is kind of missing, and once that's in, I think that it will be the domino piece for me, and I'll be making the switch. Hopefully I won't find anything too big or complex, but I feel that's the last kind of domino piece, because all the other stuff I feel is solvable. I'll probably switch to Rider for working on the project. License isn't too expensive. So yeah, hopefully soon. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on things, keeping an eye on the eye. So that's all the questions from Twitch right now. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. I will look if we have any posts to share from socials. Actually, there's one thing I want to showcase. This is from my latest devlog, and you might have already probably seen this, but I want to showcase this here as well. So one of the things that kind of sort of spawned is started working on the Resonite link, and the community has been doing really cool stuff. But one of the things this was meant for is the Unity SDK, and then when I was working on the Reflection API, I actually started co-developing the Unity SDK, which proved to be very useful. And it's usually how I kind of approach development, is because kind of need to use it, and I found a lot of issues with the design, which kind of I iterated on before it even got merged. Found a lot of bugs to kind of stabilize it, and I could the Unity SDK into state where it can now actually send simple scenes, and there's still more stuff to do, but it's showing stuff. And I made this video, and I never share. Oh jeez. Oh no, the fog in here is see, the brush to rescue. I'm just gonna do this. There we go. No more fog. So I ended up making this video. Let me actually tilt it a little bit. Oh no, we are so far from origin. This is not good. Okay, I'm just gonna play it. So you can see this is me working on stuff in the Unity editor, and I can literally just be updating the Resonite scene, and there could be multiple people in the scene, and they just see whatever I'm doing in the Unity editor. And I think that's one thing where I kind of took this for granted because I know how it works, but I think a lot of people didn't realize Resonite's still fully multiplayer. It's fully collaborative, so you can be working in the Unity editor and have people be in the session. You can be testing it live. You can have other people testing it live. You can potentially even have people contributing, building other parts. Once we have it two ways, we can be syncing the changes back and forth. And this kind of popped off because I shared it on some socials. I can get rid of the rug now. Thank you, rug. Actually, I might need it again. I'm just gonna move it to the side. There we go. There we go. It's just gonna be menacing over there. But yeah, a lot of people didn't realize. I think that you still have that collaboration power, of Resonite, even with this, and people seem to be liking it. And one of the things that I was kind of hoping for is, that this Unity SDK is gonna be a foot in the door for people who are more familiar with that kind of workflow. Maybe you have an avatar setup, you have a world setup, you want to bring it over, you don't have to spend time figuring out in-game tools. You can use tooling you're already familiar with, and then maybe start exploring the in-game tools. So hopefully this will be lowering barrier of entry, and it seems people are pretty excited for it. So it seems to be kind of doing what I was hoping it to do. It's also expandable, so like, like once it's kind of more stable state, I'm gonna open it and we'll, let people kind of like, make contributions, like to, like, for example, improve the UI, improve, like, the conversion, add conversions for, like, additional things. So it's very kind of exciting. My goal is kind of like, to provide a core of it that can be then built around and expanded. It's There's also gonna be at some point like mode where I can bring stuff to Unity, but like they might not come until we have like some of the mesh, like asset licensing, because we don't want people to just, use it to extract assets they're not supposed to. Once that's in as well, I feel it's gonna be very powerful because you can like, you could literally have people in a world and somebody's working on parts of it in Unity Editor, and also since the SDK is open source, you can make a Godot editor or Unreal editor, like integrations. And you could have, potentially a session where, somebody's working in the Unity editor on the same world and somebody's working in Godot. And like, people are kind of collaborating, where Resonite just becomes, this kind of like hub that, different things can connect to. So I think it's going to be very, very powerful, especially as time goes on. So yeah, I'm very kind of excited about that one. I also have, let's just ask, I'm grabbing the leaves. Let me actually move a little bit, there we go. Where was I? There we go. Let's just asking, are you excited to try Vintage Story? Yes, you're gonna be playing Vintage Story with a cutie. It's actually a game like I was kind of curious about, like, seems like a hardcore Minecraft style with Eldritch stuff from what I heard, so I'm kind of excited to play it. We're gonna play it later today. It's also like one thing, like, like in Minecraft, like I sometimes like reach the point where I'm like we have like automated farms for everything, and I'm just like, I kind of become like, I kind of don't have the drive to like do much anymore, because like, it just feels like I don't need it, like, we just have too much of everything. But like, I like in survival games, when we have the drive, you have the drive to kind of keep surviving and keep like progressing, and that's kind of, fun to me. And I think from what I heard, like, this is kind of what this game is about. Oran Moonclaws asking, are you all going to EF this year? Some of the members are. J4 should be there. They should be like hosting a Resonite panel. I don't think I'll be able to make it this year. It depends on how few things this year go. I will see. It's also like a little bit early in August, but I don't know. There's like a few things that if they happen, like I probably won't be able to make it. Limit was asking, one of the messages was intended as question, what would be a good way to tackle the many coexisting standards problem? I mean, if anybody knew, I feel it would be a solved problem already, but I don't think this is like fundamentally solvable problem. Let me just bring the XKCD. So you might know, this XKCD. This is just a thing that happens, and I feel like if you wanted to solve this, you would require people to, like, everyone to agree on something, and it would also require, people to like not have different needs, and good luck with that. So you can try to make standard that tries to encompass different needs, but one thing I learned, like, there's always gonna be somebody who has different needs, and somebody who's like, because I feel it's just fundamentally unsolvable problem. Like, you can make a standard that just has so much functionality, where like everybody's gonna be able to like, do their own thing. And then somebody comes and is like, this standard is too complex, we need something, more slim and more like, more easier to implement. So they'll make a standard that doesn't have all that stuff. And But then somebody's gonna be like, well, the standard is like, it's too slim, it doesn't have the stuff I need, so they make their own standard. And like, I don't think it's fundamentally solvable problem. Like, the best you can do is like, try to find like one that's a really good balance, that has like a lot of functionality, is very expandable and modular. So like it covers as many needs as possible. But I don't think you'll ever be able to fit all the needs, because people just have very different needs, very different preferences. Even the way like people think about problems, it's different. There's even like, like if you consider like, there are international standards for things, and those help like kind of make like something that's kind of shared, but then there's a lot of stuff that doesn't fit into those standards. And even like, stuff like, consider like, APIs like Vulkan, or DirectX 12, which like, two standards already, and there's, Metal for Apple stuff, because they like also doesn't fit their standard. But even like, even if you consider within the single standard, like Vulkan, you have extensions, because like, it doesn't cover all the stuff that's needed to be. And they eventually try to make it into the standard, but like they need way to add stuff that doesn't fit into the standard right now. And then, you still have to deal with a situation where like, well, this GPU supports these features and supports this extension, but this one doesn't, and we need to deal with that. And I don't think it's a fundamentally solvable problem. And that's kind of like my take on it. So like, the best you can do is make a good one that like most people will use, but be prepared for people not to use it because they will not fit their needs for whatever reason. And it's kind of, like how we, like, I'm just gonna like ramble a little bit more, but I was talking about this earlier, but this is kind of, why we approach this platform this way, is we try to give people as many tools as possible so you can build your own systems. Because if a system we provide doesn't fit your needs, you can make your own. And this applies to a lot of stuff, including, stuff like avatars. Like, for example, we provide the IK. A lot of people use the IK. We want to replace it, like, with a better one. But there's also people, like, who build their own IK systems for their avatars, because this one doesn't suit them for whatever reason. And this is, perfectly fine. That's why we made platform like this way, so you have the power and you have the flexibility to shape it to your needs as much as possible, because we know there's no way to like satisfy everybody's needs. And I guess like that's actually part of the answers too, is like, it's more like we provide the fundamental building blocks. The more fundamental building blocks we can provide, the more we enable people to like, just make their own systems, rather than just prescribing this is how this system works and this is the only one you can use. Yes, so yeah, that's pretty much like what I would say. It's like the more general you can make it, the more of a building block you can make it, the better. But even then, it won't cover everybody's needs. We got one more question from Twitch. Tom is asking, what is the state of Twitch integration in Rezo? I've heard some stuff broke at some point because of Twitch API changes. Yeah, it kind of needs to be reworked because Twitch kind of deprecated some of the APIs we were using. And they just kind of broke a bunch of the functionality for the bits. They essentially now require you to be completely authenticated. It used to be you could like, listen to some things, like for example, how many viewers there are, or like, whether we got like, bits and stuff completely anonymously. But it's no longer possible. Like we kind of like get like, messages and some other stuff. Which means we need to fundamentally kind of change how it works, because we don't want it to make so like, you put your credentials into the world, because then like it's part of the world and it's synced to everyone, and security. So what we'll need to do is add a system where you can securely logging into your Twitch, for example, in user space, in the dash, you link your Resonite account to Twitch, and then like whatever, like if you control a Twitch chat, it will now be able to use that, to access stuff, but in a sort of like secure way, like where you have to be like, yes, I want to use it right now. It doesn't let anyone just use it and use their stuff. And that requires like a little bit of a, like, really work for some things, for some approaches. And for a bit more like work, like, you know, on our end, because now we have to handle, like, you know, the credentials and storing and things and, you know, auth and all that kind of stuff, which makes things more complicated implementation-wise, which I'm a bit, like, annoyed that they, you know, remove those APIs, because, like, you know, it's stuff like you don't need to be logged in on their website, you know, in order to be able to see it, but they don't expose it nicely. And that makes the work more complicated on our end. Okay, so that's all the questions again from, oh no, we just have one. Never mind, we got a question, and a rock to the rescue. Oop. Here we go. Cavatar23, as a hobbyist operating systems technician, what is the state of Resonite's multiprocessing, multi-threading paradigm? I've always assumed it was sort of hands-off, the way C# happens to handle it. I don't know how it does though. Regardless, I think it would benefit a lot from Stutter-wise if there was a dedicated thread manager so you can give each thread priority and its own fraction of total frame time. This way it's impossible for a single thing to cause hangs. So it's a bit of a complicated question. In short, like, you won't be able to, like, you know, have so a single thing can never cause hangs. Because, like, at some point, like, you know, things need to be kind of synchronized. Like, you know, for example, if you're updating a bunch of things in the world, some of these updates need to happen in order for things, you know, to be coherent. And if, like, a system depends, you know, on results from previous system, you know, and the previous system hangs, now, like, you cannot execute, like, you know, what the dependency system without, like, you know, it just doing garbage, like, you know, data and, like, exploding or doing something wrong. So in C#, like, C# doesn't really do, like, multi-threading, like, for you by default. You have to use APIs and have to use systems. There's a lot of systems to make it way easier. We use a number of them, like, for example, the action, like, processing block. That's a really good way to handle it with, like, parallel tasks, but you need to structure your system to be able to, you know, you need to parallelize tasks where it makes sense to parallelize them. And I think it's a little bit of, like, you know, like, it's a little bit of, like thing, like, multi-threading doesn't automatically prevent stutters. There's, like, few things. So, like, one of the things, for example, do is, because we actually use multiprocess architecture, you can have we essentially have, like, you know, the renderer, it's running its own process, and then you have, like, the main process, which is hosting all the engine functions. And that made it very easy to add a system where we do something called decoupling. So if the main engine hangs, the renderer will actually decouple and keep rendering new frames. And you can, like, you know, it kind of helps smooth things out, because, like, you know, you don't jump into the Steam VR, you can still keep looking around if there's videos playing, because the videos are being actually decoded on the render side, the videos will continue playing. But everything else in the world will freeze. Like, your avatar will freeze because that's being updated, you know, from the main engine. If there's any behaviors, particles, those will kind of freeze, you know, the board kind of just becomes like a frozen scene. So that helps a bit, but, you know, you have that side effect of things are, like, you know, because the system is frozen, like, it is no longer updating. And the only way we were able to do that is because there was, like, a natural way to, you know, sort of decouple those systems. Because normally the render, it kind of depends on the engine sort of updating the state of the world. If that freezes, it can re-render the previous state, but, you know, the world is frozen. But it sort of creates, like, this natural boundary to do that, you know, to prevent the hitch from translating into the render. However, making that work universally for every single system is pretty much near impossible. You know, like, not for, at least, like, for systems as complex as this, and systems where you can have, like, you know, arbitrarily, like, user, you know, behavior. Because you need sort of, like, you need a way to kind of isolate those systems. And if you isolate the systems, you know, so you can just be like, if that system stops responding, you're just gonna keep updating everything else. That can, like, you know, have kind of cascading effects, because, like, you know, like, what if you depend on that system, you know, for things to function? And you can't do it for everything. There's some things you can do it for, and there's some things, like, you can't really do it for, because, like, you actually need the results of that system in order to be able to do stuff. And you cannot, you know, just repeat the previous state. We do... we do, like, have, like, another, like, layer where, for example, the particle system, you know, when particle system is updating, that one is also asynchronous. So, for example, if the particle system is taking too long to update, we just re-render the previous state. So you see the particle system to lag, but, like, you know, you won't lag you won't lag completely. The world will keep updating because it is not depending on that to be updated. And there's another, you know, case where there is a natural line where we can sort of decouple things, but, you know, we can only do that because that system kind of lends itself to that. Because, like, you know, the particle system, the visuals, they're purely, you know, visual. There's nothing that depends on it other than the visual that you render, which means we can skip waiting for a system to update and just render another frame, or keep, like, the engine updating, without, like, you know, things getting corrupted. But you can't do that for everything. That's the kind of biggest issue, is because you can have arbitrary, you know, user content, you can have arbitrary behaviors in the scene, and some of them do need to update in order to, like, you know, stay coherent and not corrupt their state. You know, you can't do it for everything. We can try to minimize it as much as possible, but make it impossible for a single thing to cause hang. That itself is pretty much impossible for a platform, you know, of this kind of complexity, and especially if we have, like, you know, user-generated content. At least not, like, you know, without, like, extremely, like, severe limitations to the functionality that you can have in the system, at which point, you know, Resonite would no longer be Resonite, it would be, you know, much simplified system with, like, a lot of limitations. Next question's from computer user. If I see you in a public world, should I assume you're busy with something? There were recent times where Discord, which person said you were in public world, and I thought about joining, ask for American Pizza 3D scan, but got cold feel thinking that I could be bothering you, acting parasocial. It depends. Sometimes I'll be like, I open a world just to test something quick. Usually if it's just myself in the world, like, and it's like something like a grid space, I'm probably just testing something. If it's like a social world with, like, a bunch of, like, people, you know, already in there, like, hanging out, it's more like an event, you know, like, I don't know, like Campfire Friday or something like that, then, like, I'm probably just hanging out. Next question's from Nuki-kun. Thoughts on underwater habitation systems? What would you like to see accounted for in casual simulation? What architecture do you find interesting for underwater structures? I don't really understand this question, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not really familiar with those kinds of, like, systems. That's all the questions again from Twitch. I might actually end this a little bit early because I haven't had food yet. So I might, like, end this 30 minutes early so I can grab some noms. So if there's no... Let me actually check if there's, like, social stuff to showcase. But feel free to ask, like, more questions, but I'll see, like, if I just end it in a few minutes. Because we're kind of slowing down on the questions. I was gonna, like, showcase more stuff from, like, Blue Sky and such, but a lot of it is, like, MMC, which we can't, like, showcase right now because we don't want to give anyone advantage. So I'm kind of skipping that. There's an interesting one. Come on. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's loud. Why is it so loud? There's a post from Jocelyn Harper, all of PlayStation Home, and they're doing shenanigans. Which is like one of the things you can scale yourself on this platform. So like, you know, if you want to step on cities, like it's one of the possibilities you can do. Actually, I wonder. It kind of looks like the city looks kind of European. So I wonder what that is. Let's see. Do we have more? MMC, MC. Creator Jam, we like doing stream. Let's see. This one, just like stuff. Some of the stuff I'm so like not sure if it's MMC or not, so I'm like, I want to be a bit careful with it. MMC. Which I like that people are sharing MMC, but it sucks a little bit because one of the rules is like one of the things is, you know, like we don't want to be giving anyone advantage, so we're not like resharing those when MMC is going on and when the user voting is going on. There's like one that like, you know, looks pretty, but I can't share. Under MMC. I think I'll probably skip it for today and just gonna end it like in a few minutes. We do have a question from Kyle Volbs. Is there a way to simulate as if other users end the session when testing something without getting other people? Trying to launch version outside Steam for me has been nothing but pain. I'm actually surprised that it's like pain because like it should just launch, like it doesn't need Steam VR. It'll try to initialize it, but it won't like... It doesn't depend on it, so you should be able to just launch it. However, we can also launch 2 instances of Resonite on the same PC. That's actually what I do myself, usually, when I'm testing things and I need to like test them in a multiplayer. You just give it a different data folder, because you cannot launch 2 instances with the same data folder, but you can launch them with different ones. So if you do like dash like data and give it like a different path, that'll work. And you can just run 2 instances of Resonite side by side, and that's usually a good way, you know, to kind of test things. That's usually what I do myself. If I really need to test the networking, I just like shut Steam down on one of my PCs, because it doesn't like... Steam doesn't like when I run 2 instances of Resonite on 2 different PCs. It will like try to like kick me out of one of them. But if I just exit Steam and then just launch Resonite, it works. So I can test stuff like over network. But yeah, we're getting at the full hour, so I think I'll be ending this here. If you have like any last quick questions, you can ask, but we've got, what, 2 minutes? And I'll probably ending in a minute. I'm just checking if there's any more cool stuff to show, but a lot of it's like, seems to be MMC related. But I do encourage like people to share stuff on Blue Sky, because we'll try to like, you know, showcase it and reshare it. But everyone's been having fun like making their MMC projects. Gavathor23 is asking, quickly, what are your thoughts on engine and shiftification with Unreal 5 and whatnot? I don't really work with Unreal, like I kind of played with it a few times, but like I haven't been like closely following it, so I don't actually know what's been happening to it. I know Unity's kind of been getting, like, I mean, we kind of talked about it like this a fair bit, but Unity's kind of been going downhill. I guess like in short, like I'm glad like, you know, engines like Godot exist, because we need like, you know, more stuff that's kind of open and, you know, that won't hopefully fall under the same, you know, down the same path. So I'm gonna end it here now. So thank you very much everyone for joining. I hope like you enjoyed the stream. There's there's gonna be like, you know, should be another one next week, I think. Maybe like I'll have to figure something out because I have to change my sleep schedule because I have to travel soon. So probably one next week, maybe not one next week. We'll see. But thank you very much for joining. I hope like you enjoyed the stream and like enjoyed answering the questions. That you learned a bunch of new stuff about Resonite. There's also other office hours, so you can check Probo Primes on Tuesday. There's the art team like on Wednesday. The moderation ones are Sunday, like before this one. So check those out as well. You can ask there's plenty of questions. And thank you very much for everyone who supports the platform, whether it's like just by playing and socializing and having fun, or whether like making content, making cool things, or sharing stuff on social media. That helps us too. And of course, like if you support us like monetarily through Patreon or Stripe, that helps us keep this platform going. It allows us to kind of keep it like independent, keep it aligned with our values, keep it from getting enshittified by some investor kind of like taking control of the project. So it helps a lot, and it helps like support, keep the lights on, and help support our team. So thank you very much for those of you who support us, and also like Twitch, whenever we get subscriptions, that helps too. So I'm gonna check if there's anybody to raid. Let me just open that up quick. Resonite up. Let's see, anybody streaming Resonite? There is Creator Jam streaming. I guess it's Creator Jam again. So go tell them. Go tell them hi. Creator Jam is actually like one of the probably coolest events like on this platform too. They're also the ones like hosting MMC. The competition, so definitely give them a watch. Like it's some of the most creative stuff on this platform. Because I'll see you with the next one, and let me actually send this raid. Ooh, there we go. It's getting ready. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon, TM. Bye. What? Is the button clicking? There we go. I'm gonna stop the stream and stop the recording.